You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
So the bit rattling around my head is this. AI agents are now the fastest growing customer base running on USDC.
Yeah, look, that is just a pretty wild reality to wake up to. I mean, we've spent, years talking about automated software.
Yeah, like stuff that can write code or generate images.
Exactly. But the actual moment you hand that software its own wallet, well, the entire commercial architecture of the internet fundamentally changes.
Welcome to Vocal Technologist. I've got heaps of notes sitting in front of me covering this absolute collision of crypto rails, artificial intelligence, and traditional finance.
It is a massive pile of information, yeah.
It really is. And we are going to take a proper look, just get right into the guts of it, completely avoiding the usual jargon, because frankly, the mechanics of how money actually moves in the background are fracturing right in front of us.
Which we definitely need to untangle. I mean, the infrastructure is evolving at just a breakneck pace. We are watching this simultaneous build-out where, on one hand, the underlying tech gets incredibly robust. But on the other hand, the attack vectors are getting entirely more sophisticated.
Yeah, we are well past the era of pure speculation now. We are entering this phase where robots are literally paying for things. You've got Wall Street quietly building these massive fortified walled gardens to protect their assets. And yet, if you step outside those gardens, the broader retail ecosystem is still just riddled with dodgy malware and hidden traps. So I reckon we need to suss out what is actually real here.
Let's do it.
Let's start with this machine economy stuff, because this genuinely surprised me. You mentioned agents getting wallets. Like, how is that actually happening mechanically?
Well, it's happening through infrastructure quietly rolling out in the background. So, for example, Coinbase's developer platform, their payment acceptance layer, they just quietly added support for something called Buy402 agentic payments.
Hang on, stop right there. What is Buy402? You're going to have to speak English to me.
Yeah, fair enough. Think about when you browse the web and say a page fails to load, you get a 404 not found error.
Sure.
Yeah, that is just a standard HTTP status code. Well, 402 payment required has actually existed in the web standards for decades.
Wait, really? I don't think I've ever seen that pop up.
Almost nobody has, because it was never really utilized. There was no native internet money to make it work smoothly. What Guy 402 does is standardize that 402 error specifically for AI agents using blockchain rails.
Oh, wow. So it's essentially a standardized paywall specifically designed for machines to recognize.
Precisely. So say an AI agent is scouring the web to compile a research report for you, and it hits a premium database. The database throws in Buy402 code.
And the agent just knows what to do with that.
Exactly. The agent recognizes it, pulls USDC stablecoins from its provisioned wallet, pays the microtransaction autonomously, and gets the data. And because Coinbase enabled this by default, thousands of existing merchants can suddenly accept these stablecoin-based AI payments.
Without changing any of their configuration.
Literally without changing a thing on their end.
That is fascinating. The machines are basically negotiating their own access fees in the background, like letting your Roomba order its own vacuum bags, but scaled up to enterprise software.
That is a great way to put it.
Which brings me to the part of my notes that absolutely blew my mind. Stripe is reportedly in talks to acquire a company called OpenRouter for roughly $10 billion. $10 billion.
That is a staggering number. That's an 8 times premium over its prior valuation, by the way.
Right. So what does OpenRouter actually do to justify that?
OpenRouter's trajectory is a perfect example of where this is all heading. It started out essentially as just a proxy for tokens, but now it ships server-side tool execution.
Meaning what exactly?
It handles web fetching, it handles image generation, and it does all this without requiring developers to build complex client-side harnesses. Basically, a single API call from a developer triggers multi-step reasoning and external actions across a whole bunch of different AI models.
Okay, I have to admit, I react with complete surprise at that 10 billion figure just for a routing layer. I mean, there are open source options that route traffic for nearly zero cost. Why on earth does a massive payments giant like Stripe need to own the router?
Well, think of it like this. They absolutely want to own the universal translator.
Okay.
It comes down to vendor-agnostic aggregation. Think about what the giant tech monopolies OpenAI, Google, Anthropic are trying to do right now.
Lock everyone in.
Spot on. They want to trap enterprise users inside their specific walled-off ecosystems by building in all these proprietary tool integrations. They want high switching costs so you never leave.
But enterprises hate being locked in. They want flexibility.
Exactly. Enterprises want a flexible AI stack where they can just swap models out on the fly. OpenRouter provides that completely neutral, model-agnostic layer.
Ah, I see.
So if you are Stripe, and you are the entity that routes the AI's logic across all these different models, and you also happen to hold the payment credentials when those AI agents need to transact, you capture the entire flow.
You become the new toll road.
Precisely.
They don't care which AI model wins the race because they own the intersection where all the machines have to do business. That makes total sense. Now, while AI is forcing the creation of entirely new automated payment rails, I want to pivot to the traditional finance side.
The institutional moves, yeah.
Yeah, because while the machines are innovating, Wall Street is quietly buying up the foundation of the network itself.
They are making structural moves that fundamentally alter the dominance of these markets, honestly. For instance, look at Hyperliquid.
Right.
They're real-world asset perpetuals, meaning synthetic contracts tracking actual physical or traditional assets. They just hit $26 billion in volume.
Which overtakes all other decentralized exchange perpetuals combined. And the craziest part to me, individual equities like traditional stocks make up 61% of that flow.
Tokenized stocks are absolutely dominating that space.
But I read that the way they trade is shifting dramatically. It's moving heavily to request for quote or RFQ exchanges. Now, they account for like 75% of the volume. Why the shift away from the automated liquidity pools that everyone in crypto usually loves?
This is a really crucial mechanical shift. In a standard automated market maker, and AMM liquidity providers basically dump equal parts of two assets into a dumb smart contract bucket.
Right, just a pool of funds.
Exactly. And the algorithm just adjusts the price based on supply and demand in that specific bucket. But tokenized equities are still ultimately priced by the underlying traditional stock market.
Yeah, Apple stock is priced by NASDAQ, not by a crypto liquidity pool.
Precisely. So if you use an automated market maker for Apple stock, the liquidity providers have to pre-fund massive pools and take on immense pricing risk if the crypto price diverges from the real NASDAQ price.
That sounds incredibly risky.
It is. But with a request for, quote, system, there is no dumb bucket of money. A user requests a trade, and a direct line opens to an institutional market maker.
Oh, I see.
That market maker can check the real-world price, offer a quote, and hedge the trade instantly off-chain. It is a natural fit for traditional assets because it completely removes the risk of the crypto pool getting out of sync with the real world.
It is wild to see those traditional mechanics porting over and just dominating. We are also seeing Uniswap, which is the biggest decentralized exchange, introduce permissioned pools.
Yeah, this is huge.
They are letting regulated assets trade on their protocol, but with issuer-managed allow list checks baked right into the protocol level.
Yeah, the compliance is literally coded into the smart contract itself.
How does that actually work for the user?
Well, every single swap, every single addition of liquidity is verified against a list of approved participants before the transaction can even be submitted to the blockchain. You don't even need a front-end website gate to enforce the rules anymore. The math simply refuses to execute if you aren't on the bank's approved list.
Wow. And then you have Visa launching its stablecoin platform. They're using OpenUSD, aiming to let traditional banks and fintechs mint and manage their own stablecoins.
Because corporate clients fundamentally trust bank-governed coins. I mean, they want the instantaneous 24/7 efficiency of stablecoins, but they want the legal certainty and the recovery mechanisms of their existing banking relationships.
They want to know they can pick up the phone and call a human if something goes wrong.
Spot on.
And if you want to talk about traditional players protecting their stash, the Bitcoin Security Consortium just launched $15 million from absolute giants like BlackRock and Fidelity to fund open source developers.
Yeah, and their primary motivation is fascinating.
It's the threat of quantum computing, right, to their institutional Bitcoin holdings.
Exactly. They are looking 5, maybe 10 years down the line at the vulnerability of cryptographic signatures. When you have billions of dollars sitting on a ledger, you can't wait until quantum computers can crack the encryption to start patching the network.
You have to act now.
Exactly. And they aren't the only ones hoarding. Bitmine Immersion Technologies now holds roughly 4.8% of the entire circulating Ethereum supply.
That is over $11 billion in value.
Yep, running massive staking operations, aiming for 5%.
Look, I have to push back here, though. If traditional banks are the ones minting the stablecoins, and BlackRock is paying the core developers to fight quantum computers, and traditional RFQ mechanics are dominating how we trade tokenized stocks, haven't the suits just bought the revolution? Are they having a lend of us?
Look, it definitely looks like a hostile takeover of the culture. But if you look at the actual mechanics,
Yeah.
institutions aren't adopting crypto's rebellious ethos at all. They are entirely stripping the technology for parts.
They just want the engine. They don't care about the decentralized utopia.
That is the core issue. They want the settlement speed. They want the global liquidity.
Yeah.
But they demand traditional institutional-grade compliance. That is why you see Visa's maker-checker controls and Uniswap's allow list. They are taking this incredibly efficient peer-to-peer tech and wrapping it in bank-grade safety.
Which is a massive shift from the early days of anonymous trading. By the way, if you are keen on untangling these huge ecosystem shifts with us as they happen, make sure you subscribe to the feed. We love having you along for the ride.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, we just painted this picture of Wall Street building these impenetrable, heavily regulated fortresses. But if you step 1 foot outside that fortress into the retail space, it is still the absolute Wild West.
Yeah, it really is.
It is full of traps, exploits, and shady bridges.
The vulnerabilities are shifting in ways that everyday retail users simply aren't prepared for.
Take this SparkKitty malware. It is a cross-platform bug distributed via mobile apps. It was found in an iOS app called Ocoin and an Android app called SEX. How is this thing actually stealing funds?
The malicious part is incredibly invasive. It uses optical character recognition, or OCR, to silently scan a user's phone photo library in the background.
Looking for screenshots of wallet seed phrases. I mean, it is like leaving the keys to your vault hidden in a family photo album that anyone can flip through.
That's a great analogy.
It is terrifying because people take screenshots of their passwords all the time, thinking it's completely safe as long as it stays on their local device.
And users are completely blind to this kind of operational security failure. They think that because the blockchain is secure, their phone is secure. But it's not just retail mobile apps failing. Look at the Ostium exploit.
Right, nearly $24 million was drained from the protocol. But my notes say the contract itself wasn't broken. So how did they get the money out?
This requires understanding how smart contracts interact with the real world. A smart contract is completely blind, right? It only knows the math coded into it.
Yeah.
To know the actual price of Bitcoin, it relies on an external data feed called an oracle.
Like a ticker tape feeding information into the blockchain.
Exactly like a ticker tape. The attacker didn't try to break the complex math of the smart contract. Instead, they breached the off-chain infrastructure to submit fraudulent, manipulated Bitcoin to USD price reports to that ticker tape.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the blind smart contract read the fake pricing data, assumed it was real, and generated artificial profits for the attacker, paying them out flawlessly based on a lie.
They manipulated the oracle. They lied to the blind machine. That is wild. And then there is the Arc mainnet USDC bridge fraud, which is just brazen.
Oh, that one is rough.
An investigator found that the contracts running this bridge are unverified. They are owned by a single anonymous wallet, and they contain a literal sweep function that let the owner drain the entire $500,000 reserve.
To make it worse, the exchange open flags were set to read false, meaning regular users were completely trapped. They couldn't withdraw their funds while the anonymous owner casually moved all the money off-chain using their sweep button.
I have to express some deep skepticism here. Why on earth are people throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars into a contract with a literal sweep button? It sounds completely dodgy from the very start.
It really comes down to psychological blind spots in decentralized finance. Users focus almost exclusively on the advertised yields. They see a high APY, and they just stop thinking critically.
They get blinded by the potential returns.
Exactly. Or they look to see if a smart contract had a security audit from a recognized firm, and they assume that means it is perpetually safe.
Even if the audit was for an older version of the code.
Precisely. They completely ignore off-chain vulnerabilities, like the Ostium price feeds we just discussed. Or they ignore their own operational security, like taking a screenshot of a seed phrase.
Right.
And they certainly do not possess the technical skills to read unverified contract code to spot a hidden sweep function. They trust a shiny, professional-looking front-end website and completely ignore the massive structural holes sitting underneath it.
Speaking of structural holes, Thailand's SEC just filed criminal charges against an exchange called BitCub for concealing a massive $47 million hack.
Yeah, from a cyber attack that happened entirely in the past. They hid the loss from their daily capital filings for months to prevent a bank run from their users.
It is a bit ordinary, isn't it? Hiding a loss of that size while your users continue to trade, completely unaware that the underlying backing assets are just gone.
It perfectly highlights why transparent on-chain proof of reserves became such a massive narrative. Trusting a centralized entity to honestly report their own catastrophic losses is a structural vulnerability in itself. History proves they will lie to buy time.
So if you're listening to this and wondering why anyone bothers, you aren't alone. If the tech is getting hijacked by OCR malware on one side, and the traditional finance suits are hoarding all the blue chip assets on the other, where is the everyday retail user actually going?
Well, the metrics point to some very specific and sometimes surprising places where retail is congregating.
Robinhood Chain is a perfect example. It actually overtook Coinbase's base network in daily active users. They crossed 323,000 DAUs, with a total value locked nearing $589 million. That sounds like massive adoption.
It sounds massive,
Right.
until you look at the underlying health of those numbers. The turnover ratio, which measures how often that money actually moves or trades, completely collapsed.
Really?
Yeah, it dropped from over 9 times down to just 1.68.
Meaning the money is just sitting there doing nothing. I've got to challenge those Robinhood metrics. It's got heaps of deposits, sure, but if the volume is fading and the money isn't moving, isn't it just a pub with a massive line out front where nobody inside is actually buying a drink?
That is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
There's a massive difference between organic, sticky, speculative demand and yield-seeking mercenary capital.
Right.
The mercenary capital is arriving solely to park in Robinhood's 7% APY on their USDG stablecoin. It doesn't build a sticky ecosystem. It will leave the absolute second a better yield appears on another chain.
While the few people actually trading are just playing the meme coin slots in the corner, given prediction markets now account for 20% of Robinhood's trading revenue.
Yes, it's highly speculative. And meanwhile, in the broader decentralized finance space, you have DeFi vaults like Morpho building multi-billion-dollar total value locked metrics.
How are they doing that?
They do this by wrapping on-chain strategies in what are known as ERC 4626 share tokens.
Yeah.
They basically delegate the risk parameterization to a curator layer.
What does that actually mean for the user holding the token, though?
Think of it like a Russian nesting doll of financial risk.
Okay.
You aren't holding the underlying asset. You are holding a wrapper token that represents a share in a strategy, which might be holding another wrapper token. It creates these massive nested exposure risks.
Ah, I see the problem.
Yeah, if one exploit happens at the absolute bottom layer, the failure cascades up through all the wrap tokens and destroys the value at the top.
It is a persistent structural risk. But it seems like while retail focuses on meme coins and chasing yields, the core infrastructure layer is silently maturing to handle real global scale.
It absolutely is. Lido is a prime example of this maturation. They are currently consolidating over 8 million staked Ethereum.
Which is around $16.5 billion.
Yep. They are consolidating that onto Ethereum's new post-Pectra validator design.
For those who don't spend their weekends reading Ethereum upgrade docs, what does the Pectra design actually do?
In simple terms, it allows a single validator node on the network to hold significantly more staked Ethereum than before. So Lido is cutting their total validator count by a third.
Oh, wow. That is a huge reduction.
It is. This drastically improves the overall efficiency of the network's communication without negatively affecting the gas fees users pay.
Making the pipes wider and more efficient. And I saw Ondo launched a completely new execution network, too.
Right. They realized that the actual matching of trades, the execution, was the real bottleneck for high-performance trading, not the final settlement on the blockchain.
So they split them up.
Exactly. They're separating the two. They process the trades off-chain to match centralized exchange speeds while keeping the final undeniable verification on-chain.
And real, tangible retail utility is sneaking through all this noise, too. EtherFi Cash processed over $676 million across 8.5 million transactions.
That is a lot of volume.
Yeah, they paid out almost $20 million in USDC cashback. People are actually swiping physical cards at grocery stores, spending stable coins without paying foreign exchange conversion fees to their bank.
The foundational layers are getting incredibly robust. The user experience is finally being abstracted away so you don't even know you're using crypto rails. You just see a card balance and a transaction.
We have definitely gone full circle here. We've got autonomous AI agents paying their own server bills in USDC, Wall Street hoarding Ethereum to fight off quantum computers, and retail users split between chasing yield and playing in meme coin sandboxes.
The space is fracturing into these highly specialized domains. But if you want to understand where it is all permanently heading, there is a core structural truth to keep in mind.
What's that?
Stablecoins will only become a true, independent monetary system when they are predominantly used on the liability side of the economy.
Meaning what exactly? Like in plain English?
Meaning real businesses actually paying their wholesale suppliers, funding their employee payroll, and paying their corporate taxes directly in stablecoins.
Right. Not just using it to trade.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right now, there is still way too much conversion back to traditional bank fiat deposits at the end of the day. Achieving a high match between stablecoin receivables and stablecoin payables is the ultimate goal.
That makes total sense.
Until that loop closes entirely and the money stays permanently on the blockchain rails for the core functioning of the economy, it is all just an incredibly efficient sandbox.
Closing that loop changes everything. If you want to keep tracking how these rails are evolving and see when that shift finally happens, make sure you stick with us. Vocal Technologists, see you soon.
Spoken Tech for your ears.